Micheál, I want to bring to your attention this afternoon a crisis in the availability of post-primary places for children on the autistic spectrum. There's a chronic lack of places and a chronic lack of secondary schools making provision for children and young people who are on the autism spectrum. If you look at how the primary situation evolved over the last decade and a half, you will see where departmental inspectors initially in the late 90s, 98 onwards, engaged with schools, facilitating the establishment of many special classes in primary schools. Quite dramatic growth and engagement. There's been a complete absence of that kind of proactivity, coordination, demographic planning at second level for children with autism. Overall, we have 548 ASD classes at primary. That's classes for children with autism. At post-primary, you're looking at 237 Taoiseach. So you can immediately see the enormous shortage of suitable places. And there's also a complete lack, as I've said, of proactivity on behalf of the Department of Education. The National Council for Special Education doesn't have the powers to instruct schools to take in children with autism. There's no planning, and every year there is incredible pressure on parents to do all of the running. Everything is left to the parents, and everything is left to the last minute. Last night in Cork there was a meeting organised by a teacher who works in a school that has a special autism unit at second level. Why did he organise the meeting? Because he's absolutely fed up of having to deal with the anguish of parents who are applying to go to this particular school, but there are no places for them. And he has very few other schools to send them to, because again, very few schools are offering second-level placements for children with autism. There was a huge turnout, but it's a national issue, Taoiseach. This is across the country, in every county. Parents not knowing where their children are going to be next September. And it really is because of gaps in both the legislative framework, but also an absence of proper engagement with schools, proper planning to make sure it happens, and a lack of resources. Now, the wherewithal exists in terms of the Education Admission to Schools Bill. And I'm asking you, Taoiseach, will the Government agree to give the powers to the National Council for Special Education to ensure that children are accepted by second-level schools in the first instance, and secondly, to give powers to the National Council to require schools to set up special units, to instruct schools to set up special units at second level. It can't be left to a small number of second-level schools to do this. That's what's going on at the moment. And it's about time that everybody put their shoulder to the wheel, everybody took responsibility, and that the National Council is given the legislative powers to do that. Taoiseach.
Well, it's always a very difficult situation when a child is assessed at being on a point on the autistic spectrum, and obviously it creates great challenge both for the child, for the parents, and in many cases for the school itself. In other cases, things work out very well. I say to you, Deputy, that the NCSE, the National Council for Special Education, are now carrying out a review of autistic facilities for autistic children nationally, with particular emphasis on Cork. I'd point out to you that the number of classes for autistic children has increased from 500 to 1,000 in the last 5 years, which is a 100% increase, and that continues to expand. Obviously, it's a decision for each school as to whether they wish to have an ASD class or not. And that's not a decision that the department make. But let me assure you, when you say that there isn't full engagement, there is. And this is a service that is critical in the lives of the children, but also fundamental to the lives of the parents and children in general. And the Minister for Education and the department will continue to engage and to expand the number of ASD classes, because they're a fundamental part of providing every child with the best opportunity to make their way forward. Let me say again, classes have gone up from 500 to 1,000 in the last 5 years, and that progress and that strategy will continue to expand in the time ahead.
Question, and your reply is quite dangerously disengaged and disconnected. I have to say There's 548 special classes at primary level, Taoiseach. There's 237 at post-primary. And there's 400 at preschool, where there's another big shortage. But I'm concentrating on the post-primary, Taoiseach. And what you said, that it's up to schools to decide. That's what I'm asking you to end. It can no longer be left to individual schools to decide. At primary level, every single school got involved. At the time from 98 onwards, when we brought in automatic entitlement at primary level for children with special needs. At post-primary level, it's only certain schools are working to take in children on the autistic spectrum. The rest of the schools are not engaging. The department is not engaging with them. I know it, Taoiseach. Anybody in this House knows this is happening every year. It's appalling what's going on. It's a scandal what's going on. That you have parents not having an idea whether they're going to get a place next September or not, and no need for it. Given all the work that was done in primary over the last decade and a half, everybody should know who's coming through the primary sector. There should be proper assessments. And it really worries me, Taoiseach, that you didn't really respond to the key point I'm asking. In the Admissions to School Bill, there is some progress in that bill towards this end, but it needs to be strengthened dramatically. One, to place an absolute requirement on a secondary level school to accept a child in the locality on the autistic spectrum that is recommended for such a placement. Secondly, that the National Council would have the powers to proactively engage, plan, map and organise and coordinate the provision of units for children with autism at second level to make sure that, and instruct schools to establish those units and resource them effectively. That's the way to do it, Taoiseach. It's crying out for that kind of action and intervention. The Schools Admissions Bill is the way to do it. Will you please indicate that the Government would be willing to accept amendments to the bill to make sure that becomes a reality? Thank you.
I certainly think the matter should be discussed at committee stage. Now, what you're asking here for is for the state to compel a school to form a class. That's what you're asking. You are aware that the state can oblige a school to take in a pupil. It's a very different prospect if you say, I am now legislating that you must create a class for children with autism. There's a big difference here, Deputy Martin, and that's an issue that I'm quite sure the Minister is willing to tease out at the committee stage of the Schools Admissions Bill. Will you take your Board of Management in a secondary school, and they now receive an order from the Department of Education to say that they must create a class for ASD children, when we know that if that school were to attempt to refuse to take in a particular child, that the department can oblige the school and force the school to take in the child into a class. It's a different prospect if you are setting out now to issue instructions and orders to every school that they form ASD classes.
Thank you, Taoiseach.
That's an issue that the Minister would be very happy to engage with you or whoever in the discussions on the committee stage.
Thank you, Taoiseach.